Welcome to Grab Reload. In this installment of Tony Tech Topics, we got more news to talk about, and we're going to start with Nvidia. And they started talking about how, well, I guess Nvidia hasn't, but it's been rumored that they're slowing down supply to their board partners for the 5060 to keep prices where they want them. And that this isn't, I would say, shocking. This, is rumored to be out there. And we've seen Nvidia in the past do stuff like this before. So should we be shocked that they're doing it again? No. And it is disappointing, right? That they're just trying to get the cards to beat MSRP. I like to see cards under MSRP. But at least cards are getting back to, I guess, the silver lining in all of this, if you could call it that, is that cards are getting back to MSRP, which is, I mean, fine, we'll get there. But it's an 8 gig card here, NVIDIA. Let's just make it, it should be less anyways. But this is the rumor going out, and we should not be shocked that NVIDIA is doing this. It's just another thing that they have done over the years, and yeah, it's I'm not shocked. I wouldn't be surprised if, how it's been going here is that even NVIDIA or AMD does this at some point, but I really hope they don't. But it just seems like they're trying to keep prices a certain range so that they can hit certain profit margins. NVIDIA overall, do they really care about gaming? I think publicly they'll say yes. Privately, they're probably going to say, why do we need gaming when we have so much profit from AI? And since they kind of want to keep profit up in gaming to justify it, right? Because they could, with how high AI cards are in profit margins, they can just sell it to AI rather than selling it to the gamer. Let's keep profit margins where we kind of want them. So let's throttle supply until we get what we want. I kind of see it that way. So yeah, it's kind of sad, but that's how it's kind of going here. So one thing I want to continue on here is, I'm going to put this in the NVIDIA section rather than something else, is that HBM4 is just a big thing for AI cards. Now, one of the biggest buyers of that is Nvidia, and Samsung wants to really make sure that they are supplying, uh, have enough supply for Nvidia at a price point where Nvidia wants it. Now, I don't know, I don't think that there's any really bad blood between Nvidia and Samsung, right? There doesn't seem to be, but Samsung's willing to take a profit cut on this. Basically a pricing war with SK Hynix and who's the other one that's there? There's one more I thought that does Micron. So you got Micron and SK Hynix, right? And Samsung's saying, well, we're going to try to outbid you guys, make a much lower price, even if it cuts our profit margins on it, just so that we can be supplying Nvidia. I think it's also, I think there's twofold here. One is, I get memories probably someplace else on the other side, but to get that relationship with Nvidia probably a little bit more rock solid. And then the other point is, once it's more rock solid, hopefully try to get them more into manufacturing, because I guess I'll add it right here in the Nvidia side of things about Samsung here, is that Samsung is, because I was reading this article about Samsung adding in and trying to expand, yeah, here it is, more ASML so that they can do more high-end EUV 2 nanometer stuff for their GAA wafer production. So they really, I think, are trying to build back their manufacturing and try to be as close as they can to TSMC's. So when they don't have like a 8 nanometer scenario when they did for, what was that, the 3000 series cards. So I think that's been going on here, but behind the scenes, kind of thinking, let's get them some good pricing on some HBM4, and let's go from there. So good for Samsung and Nvidia if they can work that out. It's another form of being able to go through and say, you know what, we have a competition here. Samsung can kind of get in. I mean, if Samsung can kind of line that out and get that going, what would be interesting to see out of that is that, now Samsung's got this 2 nanometer and everything else. You get some competition, maybe even AMD. Heck, at this point, maybe even Intel. We got a story on that later. But they get something like that going, right? And maybe they even bring some production here in the United States, get some, where there's, breaks and everything else here for manufacturing, right? If you can manufacture chips here and everything else, you could see, some competition stirring up in that semiconductor side where it seems like TSMC's been running away from it. I mean, you look at what Intel does, their high-end stuff. Where is it? TSMC. Intel doesn't even use their stuff for the kind of their high end at this point. So, a little piece of dust here floating in front of me. But yeah, there is. It's very fun to watch what trying to Samsung's do, and I'm just trying to read in between the lines, right? More ASML, trying to get to Nvidia. If you can get into any of that realm, I think it would be a huge benefit there. Still on Nvidia, the Nvidia app, right? That seems to be just getting so close. I've tried this out. It works, but the app is at 11.0.5.246, and from the video cards report, it's getting pretty close to replacing the NVIDIA control panel. So get ready for that. At some point, I do think the control panel is going to go away, and it's as long as the NVIDIA app has all the features, it's about time. Because it's been a long time coming for that control panel. It's on some work machines, and I still get questions about like where to find certain things because it's it can be fun. Now, Nvidia did have a new game ready driver this week as well, 581.15. So you get some Indiana Jones support here for the Order of Giants. So you'll get that game ready support. You also have some bug fixes, certain monitor stuff, Marble, Avengers. There's some known issues with Counter-Strike, Adobe Premiere, and then Like a Dragon. So NVIDIA has another update, right? This still goes back to the 700 series. That until they get to 590, you will have support on the 700 GeForce 700 and on up. So yeah, that's still there. And did I have anything else here for NVIDIA before we move into some of the, where do we want to start next? Intel maybe? We'll go to some fun Intel news actually. We're going to start with, well, I think it's good overall, right? I like that they're doing this game profiles, APO, because it's showing them that they're trying to get a little bit more performance out of their processors. So, they added 15 new games. So you're going to get 7 Days to Die, Estello, Corsa, City Skylines, etc. EA Sports, FC24, God of War, Wolfenstein Youngblood. So just I'm not going to name all of them because there's 15 games here. But they've improved the profiles, right? And this is fine. Maybe there is specific things they're doing with these profiles. I hope that it's just, these profiles are just, optimizations and not, there was that report, Moore's Law is Dead had it out and stuff where they were talking about replacing the EXEs and stuff. I don't think that this is anything like that yet, but, because I don't like that route a lot. But if this is, some way to get better performance, fine. I want to see the whole processor perform better, right? And that's how, I don't just play games. For me, games are something I like to do, but not everything I work on here. I do a lot of work stuff. So you can get me more performance out of, compiling code and everything else I do. That's a much better output, and I like that a little bit better. But, this is something that if Intel can take something away from it and maybe, get down and improve their processors overall, I think that would be worthwhile for the consumer in the end. Now, also on Intel, I believe there was a new Arc driver. Yep, here it is. 32.0.101.7028 beta driver. Now, this does have some more games. Hell on Us on Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. That is going to be supported in here. And then they got some known issues across it, but another driver, this is one area I will keep saying until I think Intel's on a good base, but they have to keep pushing this. They have to keep getting their driver rounded out. I don't know how much they're going to be focused on GPUs or if they're going to have dedicated GPUs in the future, but if they're going to keep integrating a GPU on their CPUs and do more of like an APU model like AMD has, and they have something they've done already that has been pretty good for performance. And if it can do even 720, 1080, something like that for gaming, I think that they really still have to focus on getting these drivers right, still that driver team, and deliver something. So if they were to then, take away the discrete graphics and then come back in the future because their drivers are much better, I think they have much better launch success and more grip in the community because they have something that's more rock solid and not just, hey, we are a third party, we're cheaper than AMD and Nvidia, buy us, even though you're going to have some troubles with games. So if they can get that, that would be a huge benefit to them. I think a huge boost overall. Now, video cards had this, and it was an interesting patent. Now, it was a software-defined supercore patent where you kind of combine two cores, and they would create one supercore, right? So and I guess it's not just for one. You can't you don't have to just group two. You can group more than two to create the supercore and these blocks. So this kind of is was an interesting read to me. Again, heading over to video cards, I've been getting a lot or all these articles from NeoN video cards and WCCF Tech today. So go check them out, and I'll try to remember to give them credit at the end too. But the one interesting thing, remember Royal Core, Moore's Law is Dead had that and had came out with that, and it was really interesting overall. And I had just started thinking about it more and more and what you could do with Royal Core, right? So is this a Royal Core, you know, item? I'm not sure if it's really Royal Core at this point, but what I do think is that this combining, I don't know if it was combining cores for Royal Core, more of combining or combining certain logic there. Maybe maybe Intel in this scenario is considering and breaking it down more of being the core, of being the logic that's needed. That could be, right? Sometimes you have to be detailed enough for a patent so that it can be unique enough, and then other times you kind of don't want to go too deep so that people really get what you're trying to accomplish here, and or not that deep, but then you also want to make it so it can be slightly understandable, right? Because you're trying to get the patent on it. But that would be kind of interesting here. Now, they wanted to stop wasting power and stuff like this. We're already getting really, really efficient cores, even on x86. People keep thinking that x86 is a power problem. I don't think that that is much of the case anymore. Last few years, I've watched what AMD is able to do and everything else. You look at handheld gaming devices, and even now, like Microsoft has ARM chips out, we haven't seen an ARM device, right? They're still getting software out. That's a whole other story on the Microsoft side, ironing that out. But the whole gaming side thing, AMD's done a great job. Intel's getting into that realm too. You kind of see that the performance is much better. But these, if you can group these together, get a lot of throughput through, then maybe, you hear Intel with like these 52 core processors where maybe if you have a lightly threaded load or whatever that can then propagate out to 52 cores, that works really well. But when you need it to game and you can put that up into, let's say, 12 super cores, however you're going to group those up, then you get a much better gaming performance. That would be something to, or 13 super cores, right? You could do something like that, 16, whatever you need. However many threads the games want, you form those into super cores, and then maybe you have +1 for Windows in the background when they decide to make your computer slow. That would be a really cool thing to see, and especially how it competes with everybody else out there. But these supercore complex or concepts are really kind of interesting. You know, People kind of compare it to maybe Bulldozer, their CMT technology, clustered multi-threading. Um, so, maybe it's right. Bulldozer split the cores into modules, right? Whereas this is taking it and taking the cores and combining the cores together. So a little bit different there. Uh, is the yeah this this is one of those things that I'm going to continue to watch for because I find it really fun and fun technology, right? The whole concept of designing stuff, that's uh, my background is in more electrical and computer engineering, so this is the stuff that I like the technical side of things quite a bit. So um, on the next topic, which is Intel B50 graphics card. So this is their Pro line, the Arc Pro, is only 350. You got 16 gigs of memory, 70-watt board power. Uh, 350, really interesting card here. If you're pro, you need something to work on AI. You don't need anything. You don't need, well, you want a card that's for sale. You have an option here. 350, a lot cheaper than what Nvidia has out there for stuff, but it has been pretty well received overall from what I've seen so far. And on reviews, this is a pro card, so it's not going to be anything that a lot of people are looking for. But in the gaming world. But if you are in that pro segment and you do want to do AI or any pro renderings and stuff like that, this is a card that you probably want to take a look at. So from there, let's jump over to AMD. The 9070 is now also touching MSRP. Neowind had that. I think a few other places did as well. Like to see it. That's I like to see MSRP, right? The MSRP is a good thing, but we'll see as it continues to go if we can finally get down to just cards being at MSRP all the time and lower. And lower would be the key aspect here. I really don't like when they're always above MSRP. Heck, I want to build a PC. My brother wants to build a PC. We don't really like to pay over MSRP. We actually like it under, right? That's the way it goes. But it's one of those things, right? As supply demand happens, that's kind of here. And again, AI I think is also another factor where you can use some of this manufacturing process to do AI work instead of creating AI chips instead of gaming chips. That's another option, so you can redirect stuff. Now, this is some bad news on the AMD side. The 9800X3Ds, there's still some burning here. Some people are still getting burnt CPUs. This is on the ASRock forum. 2 CPUs killed. You know, I was going back and forth saying maybe I try an ASRock board. No, it's not happening. I am probably going to avoid ASRock boards for the entirety of the AM5 right now. Maybe they hit B. Maybe they get this ironed out. I don't want to. My thinking is I don't want to go build a PC for a user, right? Especially if it isn't my own personal one, where I maybe have another computer to do stuff at, and then all of a sudden the computer dies, and I'm sitting there trying to help them fix it, right? And that's not a great user experience for them. It's not a great experience for me to have to go and fix it for something that shouldn't have happened. And then there is the whole aspect of you've just wasted time and money of both of us, right? Of everyone just trying to get it working again and building it when you could have avoided the motherboard to begin with. And this is hurting ASRock's reputation. I know AMD has came out. I think we talked about that last week or the week before, and said manufacturers are not following our parameters exactly how we set them. And this is, from what it seems, is that maybe manufacturers aren't. Manufacturers do want an edge, right? They want to prove that their motherboard is better than the other person's motherboard, other company's motherboard. And while it may be, but don't sacrifice it for the processor of what in that realm. I don't think that is a good use of business. Do it on your features around it. Do it on the styling. Do it on that sort of thing, the cooling of it. And not rather we get more performance out of the processor. I mean, in reality, each motherboard should have the same performance overall, right? Maybe different powers and power stages for that could affect performance, right? Because it doesn't get enough power. But overall, you want it so if somebody's going to burn it, right, they're going to overclock it. If it's all standard, then it shouldn't be any different. And since these were in an ITX, I don't know how much overclocking there was. Maybe there was, underclocking, but that shouldn't have this effect. So that's one of those things where you kind of get it right, ASRock. AMD, ASRock really need to figure this out, and I'm sure we've seen AMD's report, so yeah, we go there. I, on a side note, I apologize if you hear that. That's my son singing. So, 2-year-old, he's having fun. Uh, this was a report that I kind of want to try. So, there was a YouTuber, and Video Cards had this, but the YouTuber down in Brazil, I believe, Paulo Gomers. I apologize if I got your name wrong here. I was reading about it here, and interesting enough, he's running a X99 board, 6800K, and so this was not booting if you put the RX 9070 in it. Now, I have two I have two X99 boards here. Maybe I'll have three soon. Swapping out somebody's computer with an X299, and I'll get the X99 back. But yeah, this is something I want to test out. Now, a lot of the X99s are only running Windows 10 or Linux on it because, well, you can get Windows 11, and Windows 11 works fine on it because these machines are pretty powerful still, especially if you go with the higher end HEDTs, larger core counts on them. You can get 8 cores, work fine. But yeah, this is one of those things where I'm like, come on, maybe a BIOS update. Well, the whole Windows thing was just artificial in my opinion, but um, I really like to see 9000 series cards working. Whatever it needs to be. Uh, because I think the cards there might be a nice boost, right, for it to work. So let's see, what else do we have here? I thought I had another AMD article here. Yep. So AMD talking about Zen 6 CPUs. They're going to feature TSMC, N2P for the CCD, and N3P for the I/O die. And we kind of knew a lot of this from some of the leaks that even Moore's Law is Dead had, but this is on WCCF Tech, came from Kepler, and so yeah, just manufacturing practice. I expected AMD to do a lot of improvements there, and so or another step in improvements, right? Next thing is to improve the I/O die, and AMD doesn't improve the I/O die every single time. It's when it's needed, and so you kind of get that on a better process, and you kind of improve it. I think the last EPYC processors had a better I/O die than the desktop, and so you kind of move that progression and do it right. It makes kind of sense because AMD needs to have a profit margin on this. If the I/O die gets too expensive, you just throw it into your server side stuff. Still use the other I/O die where you can. And I like the modularity of it. I think it's a really good plan. That's kind of why Intel's also going to it, because it's an easy way to do it. So. Yeah, here. Ooh, I forgot an Intel story, and I wanted to get to that. Oh, we're gonna get to that Intel story. Oh, I've messed up my order again. It's a weekly thing, right? But before we get to that, this will hopefully kind of segue into there a little bit. AMD was talking about who was it? I can't remember who it was at AMD, but AMD now. First off, do I believe AMD is only working on x86? My answer to that is no. I believe that they still are working on ARM processors. They've done that in the past. They worked on some ARM stuff in the past. I think that they are still working on it. Now, they are claiming that ARM doesn't have power advantages over x86. Now, um, I've talked about this for a few years where I don't think that the power consumption is as drastic difference as as is talked about. I think that it's much closer, and I think that's, it was bad, right, at one point, but over time, I think that AMD and Intel have gone through and created a much better product for the low end. We see it in handhelds a lot, and we see what AMD is able to do in small handhelds, in gaming handhelds, and what they're capable of. Now, gaming is going to use a lot of processor, but when you game on your phone, it doesn't. It, it's not like it lasts all day. At least when I've tried it, it doesn't last all day. So these are things where as technology improves, as designs improve, even though well, both could be in the same manufacturing process, but you get to rethink designs, really get to really help out. Maybe you get rid of old instruction sets and everything else. You start seeing where performance is pretty close, as well as power consumption. I think the biggest problem here is a lot of times Windows is too dumb to actually do what is right for the power savings mode. So, maybe ARM has a benefit there because Microsoft hasn't made it horrible yet. I say yet because they for sure will. And if many Microsoft engineers disagree, feel free to reach out and I can give you a whole bunch of scenarios that don't work a lot of the time for your Windows side stuff that you've broken for at least AMD and Intel. And if I ever get an ARM machine, I'm sure I'll find stuff there too. And you will break it because that happens a lot. So on that topic, let's just go back to Intel because they were talking about performance. One thing that Intel then said, maybe I did kind of mention this before, but Intel CEO says, or CFO, not CEO, CFO said that they will use TSMC forever. So, uh, yeah. Uh, will they? I don't know. I mean, forever in a company's term is as long as that CFO is there, right? But I do think that there is some value that they have, but I think that uh, they're keeping their options open, as I think what Intel's doing, and depending upon how the U.S. government feels, it's going to be very interesting to see because they do have that indirect staking there as well, those shares. So we'll see how that goes. Now, I just want to mention that we'll talk about that later as it goes, and we'll see what Intel does. I think it's still too early. I want Intel to do well. I want them to get back into really good competition, but it's going to be something where more comments are going to be later on down the line because we need to see where they go. Now, need to start finishing this video up, so I've been rambling on too long. I had too many articles because of how I recorded the week before. Whatever. The root cause of the SSDs failing has been maybe identified. So Windows 11, right, there was an update breaking SSDs. Jay's 2 cents had a couple videos on that. Go check out those videos. NeoWind had this. Now, PC DIY group said that maybe they revealed why Microsoft and Phison have not identified or seen the crashes. They said SSDs crashing due to Windows 11 updates were pre-released and pre-final versions of engineering firmware because all SSDs manufactured selling products using Phison controllers purchased in their products from the original manufacturer and shipped to them in bulk using mass production tools. The SSDs delivered to consumers are already using official firmware. The official firmware has been thoroughly tested and verified and does not exhibit the anomalies often seen with engineering firmware. I don't know if I fully believe this. I suspect that Jay's 2 cents, a lot of their drives were using official firmware. So if Jay's still seeing these problems, maybe I don't. I have a lot of questions. You have a lot of people having reports. Why Microsoft and Phison haven't been working with those consumers? You have YouTubers that you could be working with. Easy to contact them, right? They have business contacts, and you could get something to fly somebody out. You could easily have done this to start seeing an issue and putting it into a testing phase of seeing how people are getting this. I'm pretty sure that there's something there in Windows. I don't think it's just for Phison. I maybe I'll figure this out and do a video on it the next time it happens, but it hasn't happened. So I think Microsoft did fix something, but I know it's something with Windows that every once in a while on my media PC, which is in a whole backup box and everything else, which really irritates me, is that it'll randomly shut down and restart. And when it restarts, I do not have the SSD in there. Now I'm using a Samsung drive, so I don't think that Samsung drive has a Phison on that at all. I don't think so, if I recall. So I don't think it's just Phison and stuff. But I know this happens. I still have all my hard drives. I just don't have that drive. I let it sit there for a while, reboot the machine. It works fine again. And so I know this is a problem. Now, it would happen to quite a bit, but now it has died down over the last 2 months. And I was just frustrated. I was about to buy another drive. And now that Jay's 2 cents does something, I should do a video sooner on it. I'm starting to think that there might be something else. The only problem is I don't know how to really reproduce the problem because it happens randomly on mine. So Jay has kind of, done a lot more testing on that, but this is one of those things I'm not fully there yet, but we'll see. Microsoft is open sourcing BASIC 6502, so that's pretty cool. I like to see that. This is before we continue, this is a big one. Cloudflare is having something called, or Cloudflare had a breach called with Salesloft AI. So that's something that's breaching it, and Salesforce is saying, or Cloudflare is saying that nothing was really affected, um, but everything's still operational. However, logs, token, and passwords may be shared with the attacker. This is going around. They didn't just have it. A lot of other companies are having this too. Just pay attention out there. Try to secure yourself as much as you can. It's an attacking world out there, and you got to think about how you're protecting yourself no matter what you're doing. How to make sure that entry point of the network is protected. So Microsoft is sharing how it's trying to detail drivers. We talked about this a little bit. How they're switching over to Rust, everything else. I want to mention this again because I think for the next generation 25H2, I think this starts in. I like to see this. I like to see what Microsoft's doing. Hopefully, it prevents a lot of issues, especially memory-related issues. Right? Rust is supposed to be much better at being memory safe than like C++ or C. So I still like those languages. I still think you can get them pretty memory safe, but you have to do your work at it, right? You have to do your work at it. But that's kind of cool. Now, Windows 11, real quick, Windows 11 25H2, guess what? That's going to release preview channels, so we should be able to get it here. I am disappointed that Microsoft doesn't make more of a fanfare about this. We get Apple, they make a fanfare about it every year. You're down to one update a year, Microsoft. Make a fanfare about it. 25H2, right? We are doing this. Have it on a release date. I know Microsoft does not like that. They like these rolling updates, but still have an event there. Have it maybe rolling out beforehand. You know who the seekers are. So you know people that'll go click, or at least I'm pretty sure you do, click check for updates, right? Those people that click check for updates, they're seekers. They want to go get this, have them, they've already checked, make sure, get the Windows as fast as it comes out, right? That's not on every person's machine that I set up. It is on mine. Why? Because I like to test it out. I like to make sure what it's like before I get it, and I have to go to other users. You know this, allow that to maybe roll out a little bit beforehand. Maybe get the articles, and then you have the big event of people already starting to talk about it, of what's all in there, what you've done. I think you could really capitalize on that. I was listening to Brand Sams. He had that, great idea. He was disappointed that you guys don't do event anymore. And this is kind of, I think, watered down Windows a little bit by just being like, yeah, I think it's a part of your problem of quality because you don't really push for it's a big event, it's a big thing. We've done a lot to improve it, and I think that trickles down to just how quality is. And I can talk about quality quite a bit because, yeah. But yeah, we are talking about the Phison stuff, so that was there, and I think we are on to Valve, which is an interesting one here. Valve has trademarked something called Steam Frame hardware, so maybe a console. This is one of those things I really want to see. Is it something like a VR? Is it a console? I don't know. I mean, frame would be VR would be kind of cool, but the next gen VR, I haven't got into VR, so I think that's part of the reason why Valve hasn't really let's do a new new VR, right? They're doing it kind of as the market. Okay, we can do an upgrade here. It makes sense. Let's do it for those that want it. You know, I do want to play Half-Life Alyx, right? I'm a huge Half-Life fan. So, but again, it's in VR. So, what else do we got here? Let's just go to gaming here, and we'll end on gaming because I'm already too long. So Battlefield 6 will not have ray tracing at the beginning. It'll be interesting because I thought it was Battlefield, which was one of the first ray tracing games Nvidia was showcasing on their games, and now they've gone away from it because they want more people playing it. Huh, interesting. It's almost like not everyone uses ray tracing. So, yeah, there's that. Half-Life 3, this is something I'm really interested in. I don't know if you guys are, but they are saying it's basically done. It's ready to be revealed. It's going through optimization, gameplay updates. Can we get it? Is it a good story? I want a game with a good story. I hope that it's kind of in the same Half-Life, you know, 1 and 2 and all episodes, episode 1, episode 2, all of those gameplay and game storylines. I don't want something that is kind of meshing with a lot of these new games, because it seems like we're getting a lot of games that instead of they're in their like old character like, and we'll go into this like 007 First Light is going to launch in March of 2026 here, which you know looks like a interesting game. However, I was starting to think about it. Does it look like it's a James Bond game? And well, it looks like dressed up like James Bond, right? They're James Bond character and stuff. Is it really like a James Bond like game that you'd expect, or is it more kind of like a kind of cookie cutter game that they kind of put together that a lot of other games now are kind of been like? And I need to see a little bit more. I hope that it's more like a James Bond. Now, I'm more of a, you know, Connery James Bond fan. Like, that's my really, like, I really like that era, right? So that's what I kind of expect of how the game would progress and play. But this is one of those games where would like to play it and see how it works. But that's one of my concerns about new games as they come out. But I want to mention that as well. We have Ubisoft. Ubisoft have a 26, 27 lineup. You're going to have Ghost Recon, Far Cry games, Assassin's Creed. You know, they're really trying to make, I mean, those three are their big profit makers. They kind of did that, you know, head count cut or whatever else. And so we'll see what they have in store. I think that there's rumors of 2 Far Cry games, and I'm mentioning that because my friend's a huge Far Cry fan. He plays all of the games, all the Far Cry games on PC. So that's pretty cool that they'll have that. You know, more games better. And what else do we got here? Call of Duty movie. Anybody interested in that? So this is going to be Paramount Skydance creating a Call of Duty movie. You know, Microsoft's doing whatever it wants to license stuff to get that money back for that $70 billion they spent, right? Wow. Nintendo Switch is amazing. Or I should rephrase that. Nintendo Switch 2 is amazing. The WCCF Tech had this. Gearbox is really saying they want to bring more games to it. So Gearbox is the boss there, the head man, the head honcho, right? He's like, oh yeah, this is amazing. So that's who's saying it. Well, I have to wait and see of how many games. Everyone keeps talking, yeah, we'll bring our games here. We'll bring our games here. Well, I'm still waiting for all these games to be brought there. So that is all I have for you today. There's some more stuff, but if I missed anything, make sure to leave it in the comments below. We'll maybe talk about it next week. I want to thank you so much for watching Gray Overload and helping this channel grow. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and watch another one of my videos as it really does help the channel. Until next time, God bless.